What a beautiful day today. I'm Karolis Stasiūnas, a founder of Sports Lodge. And I'm just another human being like everyone who is in this room and who is watching the replay of this meeting. And we came today with a great deal, to come together and be the people for each other, the support, the community, and team. And from the roots of my own being, I know how important it is to be part of something that accepts you, that loves you, and helps you to bring the best out of you. That's why today I invited very important people in my life and in the journey of Sports Lodge. So I would like to introduce them with great honor and humbleness to have them here. First of all, Dr. Zsuzsanna Fajcsak.
Hello, hello.
She is my family. She is my mentor and a great partner of one humanity, one love, one beautiful connection that we all have. Next amazing partner and mentor is David John Hesketh. I met him through a beautiful journey of exploring neuroscience. Hello, David.
Greetings, Karolis.
So why have these two amazing people here? Because they're so similar in many ways, and they are so unique in many ways. I found myself, first of all, meeting Dr. Zsuzsanna Fajcsak, and she opened for me a vastness of the universe in my own self. She helped me to realize that what we are is far beyond just motion, just a thought or emotion. And even, I had these realizations. I was lacking that congruence in myself of accountability and taking that lead of change. She helped me to integrate that, and she gave me tools that for the last 4 years, I have seen changing my life and the lives of my clients, the people who I connected to. Over the last couple years, I met David Hesketh. And when I actively started to work with business owners and athletes, I understood that not everything is in the same language. Sometimes different people need different words, different approaches, and different ways of talking about transformation, mastery, growth. And I realized that my own life was built on responses that sometimes was out of my control. And if we look to the world, there is so many things that people don't look like they control. Their impulses to their own emotions, their impulses to what's happening in the world, their impulses to their own feelings, how they treat themselves and how they treat others, and how we take care of ourselves and how we take care of others. And that's why I'm in the point of my life where I understand that every language, scientific language, spiritual language, gym bro language is all important because it serves different people, different needs, and different stages of growth. Now, talking about growth, I would like to have a share with Dr. Zsuzsanna of her story and her message to the people who are going to listen to that, because I know that she had a long day and she will leave us very shortly after her message, but I know that is very important message to her. So Dr. Zsuzsanna, thank you for your visit.
Thank you for your invitation. I really feel blessed to be here with you. And because it's all about sports, and sports has been a foundation to my life. For sport has been my life. If I don't have sports in my life, possibly I am not here today. That's how important it was. So I prepared a little story for you from my life, which I thought can be inspirational for other people, just to sharing what I received. So first of all, my story starts, this story, when I was 5 years of age, and my parents didn't know what to do with me because I was so active and so restless. So yeah, and I was always moving. And someone suggested I should be taken to sports school, and when the physical education was part of the curriculum. Sorry, you hear my dogs so in the background, so apologies for that. So when in a sports school you have daily physical education, that means they will wear me off so I would be manageable at home. So that's where all began, really, as a structured form of sports. So one day when I was in the pool with my brother, my 8 years older brother, and I jumped into the pool, swimming coach just said, I want her, because she was so, confident jumping into the pool. So I started my first sports as a swimmer. So I had no hesitations. I was fearless. I did everything they told me to do. And I did that joyfully because I enjoyed that I received a feedback back. And that was later on is something very important in my life. So, but I found, that sports school for me, it just wasn't a place to move, because you go to school and in the afternoon you go for your trainings. So basically, I found a family. I found a place where, I belong. That's what you were just saying before. So, and that was my place of peace, because at home we didn't have peace. So it was constant fights, and I hated to be home. So when I needed to go home, I always went home with great tears in my eyes that I have to go home. So things were hard, but that was okay. Fights were daily and constant tension. So no wonder that I had so much restlessness. So my parents eventually divorced, but sports became my outlet, and that was my only safety place. And where my efforts led to achievements, because I did get acknowledgement and recognition. So it was important because my physical education teachers gave me the support I never really received from my parents. And they became such an icon in my life that I wanted to become a physical education teacher. So my first degree actually is a physical education teacher because of them. My father was a lawyer, so I never wanted to go to law school. So I fought them all off that I have my examples, my icons in front of me, and I'm following their path. So going back to that training, so we trained everything, gymnastic to track and field to ball games, and naturally by 10 years of age, I was talent ID'd out for team handball. So that's, 6 on 6. It's not one hand against the wall, and it's full contact. So I really loved it. That was all the intensity, all I ever wanted. Really wore me off. And the major things what I received there is not just the play, but I was part of a team the first time in my life, and that was actually so iconic for me, because I never felt belonging anywhere. Even when I was in sports school, I was part of the class, but it wasn't really the cohesion what you have when you play in a team sport. So basically, what did I get training there? And I did team handball for 12 years, and I ended up in first division actually. So receive discipline. So show up every day, even when it was painful. Adherence, following through when no one else was watching, right? Focus, stayed locked in onto a long-term goal. We had a championship to win. We had the daily trainings. Then we had only 2 weeks off in the summer. So we trained all through that the summer when other kids were, holidaying. So resilience, working through pain and still showing up. How many times I trained with injury. Then I got the injection in my knees, so I am not thrown off from the team. So all the work is, paying off. And then humility, a little bit. I started to have it there because we had to learn to celebrate the win, even when I didn't score. So assisting a score and the goal was actually a great celebration, and it needed to become that teamwork was essential for my life. So that all came from the daily grind because we were training day by day, week by week, month by month, spring, summer, fall, winter, running through the icy roads. We were playing outdoors at that time. So we went through really hard times at that time. But at that time, we didn't know that was a hard time. That's the thing. So basically, we did the push-ups, the sit-ups, ran the many kilometers. We jumped around every day, and it seemed to be boring and repetitive, but we all saw the improvement through it, and that was just a process to go through. So we learned to trust the process, and that was one very important thing to learn, because when you work for a long-term goal of the championship, you have to learn to accept daily tasks and celebrate them as an achievement. If you don't do that, you're never going to adhere to a long-term goal. So behind every reps and every kilometer ran, we also the progress, because sometimes we were able to do 3 trainings a day when we were in training camp, 6 a.m., 10 a.m., and then 4 p.m. So that was rough, 2 weeks of our training camp getting us ready for the championship. So what was the magic of the sports, really? I jumped over and I started at age 4, but actually it was when I was 4 years old. And my 8 years older brother took me to the playground because mom and dad were working at that time. And so he had to take me with him. So he couldn't just leave me behind. They accepted me to play football on the playground. So I felt so proud that I belong to some other people. I got a task. I was the goalie. So it was very important task that I was the goalie there at age 4. And even though as a tiny me, I was just kicking people's shins, I still got ahead and we scored, and I was so happy. So I felt included, and I felt that there is a place I belong. So that's what team gives you for life. And this stuck with me for the entire life. Whatever I did is always part of the team later on as well. So what did sport give us? Not just fitness and not just medals, but a sense of purpose and a place to belong, a platform to grow and do it all together. And now that is important because today I'm speaking on behalf of Sports Lodge and celebrating you guys, because Sports Lodge isn't just about physical movement, it's a movement itself, a platform that gives people a place to belong, to be challenged, and to become something greater than what school, college, university alone can offer. And here you go through community, you rise through unity, and you build your life on values that creates not just good athletes, but good human beings. So whether your path leads you to business, family, or your personal mission, sport will shape how you show up, how you lead, and how you leave the world better than you found it. So thank you. That's all what I could say, and wish you really the best on your wonderful journey building a new society through sports, because youngsters who you are targeting, they really need the guidance, because they are left out, because for parents they are too old, and they are in between schools or finishing school. They have no place when someone truly cares for them. And I highlight this with my last words, because bullying is such a what would I say? I don't want to say the wrong word. So it's such a challenge today for children. They are not prepared to live in society and manage aversions. And there are many suicides are coming out because kids, young age, they choose to leave this world because they don't see purpose, because they don't have the tools. So I'm celebrating you because you are giving tools for the youth so they can actually break the generational whatever they are bringing, that karma with them, and build really, really a better life. So thank you.
Thank you. It's so interesting because most of the story I never heard before.
Yeah, it's the first time ever being told in public.
Wow. I'm honored, and I believe that, and I feel that those who will watch this, maybe it will be a couple hundreds in upcoming months, but what will be watched in the future, people will feel it. They understand why it was told today. All I can say, I'm wordless on that. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Now, with all honor and gratitude, I have to ask you what you want to do next. What is your plan? Are you going to stay for David's speech, or you have to go? What is your need now?
How long is about that? How long is possible?
We are here for 40 minutes.
Okay, I stay for David, and that let's see, because then it's really the clocking the end of my day.
Yeah. I remember that you had sessions and it was a long day. So I appreciate you showing up for this. David.
Yeah, I'm very pleased that Dr. Zsuzsanna is going to stay by, because I've got some threads that I'm just able to connect with what she said, and that's so. But thank you so much for the honor of being here, to be able to help you with this launch, and to be with you, my brother, and the group that is watching. My story is different, and it's an interesting way that I've came that sport has really come to play a role in my life. When I was very young, I was extremely active. And so much so that there's a photograph that my mother still has of me in one of those chest harnesses, because I would just run everywhere. I never did anything slow. I was always going all the time. And that was kind of my way. I would just sort of jump in and just go for everything, right? So whether it was in the waters of the lakes in north of Toronto here, or whether that was putting on a pair of ice skates and skating in the winter and playing in the snow, I was always out in and playing. And I was a very capable athlete, and very, very fast in terms of my speed, probably through mid elementary school or primary school. And then we changed and moved to a new city. And that city was, as many people will know, the city of Niagara Falls, Ontario. And a very famous city, but also very rough city, because border cities have a tendency to be that way. And I went to a school, I was very good in school, but I also, I was also much smaller than most of the other boys. And through grade 7 and 8, I got bullied. So there's the connector to what Dr. Zsuzsanna was saying, is that whole bullying piece that happened to me. And while I was still pursuing some of my athletics through track and field, as we call it here, athletics as it's known overseas, is that I started to have self-image problems. And so what happened is that by the time I got to high school in grade 9, I was really feeling quite a low self-esteem. And so what I did is I took up smoking, and I took up cigarettes, and I started to behave in ways that was going to make me feel like I could belong somewhere. So my belonging was not through sport, it was through social acceptance, because the boys around me didn't accept me. So I wanted to gravitated towards to where I would be accepted. And that was in sort of a bit of a counterculture, not seriously, but a bit of a counterculture in those days. So, it was many years later that, and I went to university. I took some time off from high school when I worked for a few years. I didn't really do too much, but I was still quite active in my work. And then I went to university, and I started playing ice hockey again after a few years off, and I loved playing that sort of rough and tumble version of the sport. Some people call it rugby on skates. For those, it's a bit of a rough game, and I enjoyed the sort of the bit of the rough and tumble. But again, that's where I started to feel, as Dr. Zsuzsanna was talking about, is this sense of community, being in a dressing room with a bunch of guys and whatnot. But although there was one aspect of it that I really didn't like, and that was really the really disrespectful way that some of the young men would speak of the women. And I just didn't like that. I didn't participate in it. And I sort of stayed back from that sort of locker room culture stuff that I just really didn't like. I just sort of stayed quiet because I didn't want to be not part of the team, but I also didn't want to speak out for fear of rejection and that kind of thing. So it was an interesting experience that I went through in that. But once I left university, I really didn't play much sport at all, but I did get back into a little bit of cycling, which I did when I was in high school, just more recreational cycling than anything else. I didn't do any competitive stuff. But then I got into work, and I threw myself completely into work. I went to university, and went through. I studied neuroscience and psychology, and biology. So I was this um, sort of a convergence of that, because one of the things that I was really interested in also was spirituality. I was going through sometimes trying to figure out who I was as a human being, particularly in relation to my spiritual life as well. So I was doing a lot of exploration of all of these sort of the biology, psychology, spirituality component. And I got involved in what is known as Waldorf or Steiner education, through a little bit of disillusionment through public education, and which was really the synthesis of the practical biological psychology as well as the spirituality. And I taught in those schools for about 17 years. I went to South Africa, and I got a family there and went to Vancouver. And while I was in Vancouver, we took the students out on an annual hiking trip into the mountains. Sort of part of this, physical stuff that we were doing with these youngsters as the way of starting the school year. And I went on a particular trip at the beginning of the school year in 2000. And I had my backpack and all that stuff. And we're off, and we're hiking in the mountains and staying overnight for 4 or 5 nights. And I reached over to tie up my hiking boot, and my back went like this. And I'd had a few back injuries earlier in my life, and I couldn't move. I literally it was almost like I had to hobble out and get carried out of the mountain. They stopped the trip to get me out. Now I'm 40 years old at the time, right? So I'm kind of going like, what's going on? And I got a young family and whatnot. So I'm starting to get a little bit nervous. And I get to see the doctor. The doctor says, I'm going to book you off for 6 weeks. And I said, 6 weeks? What are you talking about? 6 weeks? He said, you're injured. He said, if you go back to work now, you could do permanent damage to your back. And he and I had a very frank conversation about smoking. And he said, look, he said, you got a young family, and I want you to imagine now yourself over there on the other side of the examination room, and you're hooked up to a bunch of a breathing apparatus and a heart-lung machine, and you just had a heart attack. And I said, he said, because that's where you're heading right now. He said, you got a young family. He said, you need to stop smoking. And he gave me a technique, which I won't share with you, but how I was able to then break that in almost an instant, in an instant in time where I stopped. And the first time I ever went to a physiotherapist, and I went, said, you have to go swimming. I said, swimming? Okay, I love swimming. And I swam, and I'm just doing very, very gentle, slow strokes to start to rehabilitate. And I couldn't get past 300 meters without struggling with my breath. I said, this is no good. I can't do this. So at that moment, I made the commitment. I chose a date, and I said, no more smoking after this date. And from that moment on, I chose to take up triathlons as my healing, as my replacement for my tobacco. And I was inspired by the athlete who won the first Olympic triathlon in Australia, the Olympics in Australia. And because I love the Olympics, my brother was an almost Olympian. He came that close in decathlon, and I was always very proud of my brother as he was escalating. He was a Canadian champion in 1988. And so he was always a bit of an inspiration. He wasn't a bit, he was always an inspiration for me in the sports because it was something that he took on. So I took up triathlons and I started doing short ones, and I got longer and longer, and I started taking this up and doing my cycling and doing my running and doing my swimming and really dedicated to this. And I really started to feel better. And what was interesting about that is that it really built an inner strength in me that I didn't realize that I had, because there was no form. I wasn't going to a gym. I wasn't part of a group or a club until later on. And I was really having to take this on as a way of being able to really recreate myself. And I found that I was stronger. I found that my thinking was clearer. Found that I was actually growing and evolving more in that capacity. And that I kind of forgotten how much I really enjoyed sport. And so from those days, and then I moved back to South Africa, and I did long cycling races. I did what was known as the 94.7. I took that up as my annual long cycling race. And again, it was an individual thing just because I was working. And so I don't really have time to be part of a club. But I realized that how important that was, though, was that it was really, and it still remains that way, is that sport has become something that I do, the whole relationship of movement. Every day now, in order to keep myself healthy, I do actually a daily strength, flexibility, and conditioning and meditation routine that I do on a daily basis. It takes somewhere between 1 to 2 hours, depending on the day. So I've got a shorter routine. If I've got a little bit of time, I've got a longer routine for those days where I can make it longer. But it's a non-negotiable. That's for me is the thing that's really has been the discipline of sport that has provided me with, is that it's provided me with a non-negotiable routine, because I know that as my hair gets more and more white and as I age, I want to be able to retain my ability to move, and to move with clarity, to move with clear thinking, to move and to be able to sit for long periods in meditation or doing yoga, or my strength and conditioning, going for long bicycle rides. And I know that my mobility is absolutely critical to doing that, because I've had this sense that my purpose, and I believe everyone has a purpose in life, and that it is enabled by having a healthy physical apparatus. This is your vehicle. So in a certain way, you have this soul spirit that is you're inhabiting in this physical body for a certain period of time. And to be able to fulfill that objective and that goal of consciousness of what you're meant to be doing here, this apparatus, your vehicle of life, needs to be healthy and in a good way. And that way, then you're able to participate in the growth and the evolution that we're all experiencing. We're right in the middle of this huge paradigm shift right now, where things are changing and flipping over with such speed that it's asking something new of us. And the metaphor for sport is it allows us to be flexible, not just in body, but also in mind and in soul and spirit. It allows us to be strong in terms of our mind, in terms of our soul and our spirit. It allows us to be it allows us to be durable, endurance, that endurance component to keep going when things are hard through your mind, through your body, and your spirit. So it's really that threefold component of it that really is the discipline of sport that allows each one of us to be able to transcend where we've been and where we're going, and to be able to, in a certain way, sport, because of what it does, it actually grows the body. It helps to form and keep the instrument tuned so that you can then continue to participate in a way that contributes to the whole, contributes to the community, whether it's that's a community such as Sport Lodge, whether that's a community of your a town like Oakville where I live, or whether it's a larger community of a nation or even the globe itself. We're all part of one community. We are one, and we're all one humanity. And the ability to be able to participate in that is dependent on our ability to be able to be strong, fit, have endurance, and be flexible within the context of our life together. And it's with that, I just wish it's been I'm really grateful to have this opportunity to be able to speak. I don't think like Dr. Zsuzsanna, I don't think I've ever spoken to this in public either. It's to be able to go through this, a little bit of a biography of my own sport experience, and how important my overall health and well-being, that is linked very much to my ability or linked to sport. I don't think I've ever had that opportunity to share that. So, yeah. So thank you for the opportunity, and I thank you for the opportunity to share that, Karolis. And I hope some people. For me, the challenge has been, I've gone through the depths of hell. Right, I had to go through that really hard stuff where I wasn't participating in sport, where I was addicted to negative substances that were pulling me down, and it gave me the opportunity then to rise again, but in a new way. And I think for me, that was the opportunity. That was my path. And I hope some young people can take inspiration out of that, because there's always the opportunity. There's always a possibility, always a potential that lives in each human being.
David, that's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
So it's how, like, when listening to the stories of people who had the experience of life through, not just through sports, not just speaking about sports itself, but through this conditioning of the character, of the virtues, of the choices, how much clarity all that journey is bringing on the table, how much clarity we gain about ourselves, about the importance of being part of something that we inevitably are. So I'm very, very grateful for you, David, and for you, Zsuzsanna, for being here and sharing these two beautiful stories. Thank you.
If I can reply to that, Karolis, I think what it does is that the beauty of sport, what sport does, and training and exercise and whatnot, especially when you have to push yourself just that little bit further, it actually helps to build that character, build something inside of you. And different people can learn different aspects of themselves. So it's not just one thing. It's not just about being strong or just being durable. It can teach you other things about yourself that awaken as a result of that.
It is.
So I like to have a take on that, because I didn't finish 98% of my story on sports. And elite sport is not healthy. Let me tell you that, as I was telling you that. And that leaves you with scars. with later on in your adult life, your shoulders are not working well, your knees not working well, you have backache which are flaring up time to time, sciatica and all that. None of it what many people talks about when they are at the level of fitness level, because elite sport, as I said, is not healthy. So I learned to nearly destroy myself psychologically through sports. That's not healthy. Don't do that. Because when you feel pain emotionally, you go for a run, you lift more weights, you bang on the boxing bags, something like that for an outlet, and you are not learning to deal with your own emotional states. What you are actually destroying yourself through physical activity. And I have done that for many, many, many years, and ended up burnout many times. So don't do that. Okay. And everything what your body needs, your body will tell you. If it's something which is coming from an imbalance, you feel that you don't have your peace, you go for a walk rather than a run, have your little clarity back, sit down and meditate it out, and just observe your breath and just feel your sensations and everything as it's passing, and you realize it's not you. So once you do that, you start to actually clear out emotional imprints and not just managing them, because that's what really sports is, a management tool, but not a clearance tool. So why I left sports behind and the sport nutrition behind and all that behind is because I needed to learn what my body is telling me as a healthy thing to do. So if it's yoga, mostly it's yoga, mostly stretching, and it's only walk, mostly with the dogs. I don't even go for walks on my own anymore. And teaching yoga, so my movement includes doing something good with it for other people. So it's transformative. As you are growing, sports is gonna grow with you, and it will always remain part of your life, always. It's just you have to feel it in what form, because as you age, it's gonna change, and it's okay. And for me, the hardest point was to realize that I can't run 10Ks anymore, but I don't need them also. So the beauty of it is no longer sports is there for me to beat myself up, because I don't need to beat myself up anymore. My focus is sharp enough. And for most of the people who are listening and they are high achievers in this group, they know what I'm talking about, because it's not doing more, doing less, but doing it more efficiently. And if you learn your own morning routines and afternoon routines and whatever that is what you do, which keeps you healthy, then it cheers. My cheers for you to do that and listen to your body, because you shouldn't wear yourself out that much. I know people, and there's one special lady, she started to run when she was 61. She's Hungarian. She's 63 now. She won every major marathons in 2 years. She has 3 trainings a day, but she never moved in her life. So it depends on which age you started and why are you doing it. Mm-hmm. So as for David, for me, it's movement is like feeding your body. It's so part of life, like meditation, like everything else. So I just wanted to share that little bit of a thing, because there is a fine line there. So let's not cross that over. Just stay healthy.
Yeah, and I want to just echo really what you've said, Dr. Zsuzsanna, is that I think one of the things that is really important that I've discovered is how important meditation is. And the reason it's important is because it allows you then to really tune into what you're talking about. What is it that your body needs? So from that standpoint, whether it's the nutritional component, eating organic foods and foods that are actually really nourishing the body, as opposed to the, just the sport nutrition, as you mentioned earlier, whether you are actually then able to push your body to the point where you're able to realize, okay, I'm at my limit. And this is actually a healthy limit as opposed to a limit that's pushing beyond to the point of injury. You're speaking about the elite athletes, and I do want to share that. I did mention my brother was an elite athlete, and he's not much younger. He's 3 years younger than me, and he's paying the price. He's paying the price. I think he's had 29 different operations, knees, back, wrists, arms, shoulders. It's just because he just pushed himself beyond the bounds of what he did. So it's also, like you say, part of it is becoming body aware and aware consciously of what your limits are that are going to allow you to be able to continue to function. So and we see that, and of course we see that in gyms all the time. Guys that are going, I want to bench press, 300 kgs or whatever, right? I don't know. Obviously, I'm not a weightlifter, right? But you get the idea, right? That we push ourselves beyond our limits, and that's when you create injury, and that injury, particularly from a biological point of view, has to do with protein-based injuries. So it's cartilage, it's tendons, it's ligaments, which are all protein-based, which take an enormously long time to heal, particularly as you start to get older. So it's also something to keep in mind as well.
There was a moment that Dr. Zsuzsanna mentioned about importance of why we are doing what we are doing. And when you said about 300 kilograms, I remember that all these power lifters, and one of the famous, as myself, I'm Lithuanian, so I know this very well-known person, a big Z, Žydrūnas Savickas. He was multiple times strongest man in the planet. And when I saw him, I know he's coming into his 50s, I suppose. He didn't look like he's struggling with his body, right? He seems to be right now in a position where he's training, and I heard rumors he was preparing for showing up again in the Masters. But the thing is that same with belonging to a community. You can get very much confused to where you want to belong. Because if you are coming to be accepted and you are aiming for a society that has no clarity why they're doing what they're doing, why they're chasing what they're chasing, that's major issue with steroids abuse, with performance enhancing drugs, right? Is that people want this specific outcome, but they don't know why they want it. And I remember I had this conversation with a mentee of Dr. Zsuzsanna, Isaac Bezina. He's a black belt of judo, and he made realizations that a big realization that he's not about being an athlete. The sports is extension of what we are, and that conversation really opened my eyes, because we are so fitting ourselves into an environment where we feel like you mentioned, David, and like Dr. Zsuzsanna mentioned, that we become part of the team, and that is not always clear. That is not always what we really want. So it's very very important to be capable of reflecting on that.
But don't you think there's a part of us, just as human beings, that we want to be a part of something, right? And sometimes that we just don't know. It's in terms of the development of consciousness and the development of thinking, there's a stage of development where we are really it's really important to actually have developed those community bonds, and they take many different forms, but it typically is most concentrated somewhere between 7 and 11 or 12 years old. It's called ethnocentric or group-centered consciousness, where we've actually then defer our independence or our individuality. It's not even deferring it, but it's just it belongs to the group at that phase until we move into independence from a developmental point of view. So so for me, that whole element of belonging and being in community is important. But I think you highlight that it's important that it not be displaced or supplants. And one of the places that, of course, we see that is these raging fans of these massive sports teams that we've got all over the world, where people just their whole identity is wrapped up in these large groups that we call sports teams, or national or political movements, or whatever you want to call it, right? But in terms of sport, that they actually get in a certain way lost because they are, raging fans of the Toronto Maple Leafs, right?
Yeah. So
Kind of thing.
I have something addition to this, because in my book, the secrets of happiness, locked in your fears. One of the secret is how you put yourself together and get out of your fears is belonging. But it's not belonging to any social group or anyone. Just belong to the universe and accept that's all the unity. That's the only thing which you need to feel whole and completed and contented, and have abundance in your life, because you are alive and part of that whole huge thing, which is impossible to fathom for our little mind how big that is, but you feel that. So once you calm down, and that's why meditation is so important, and it's fundamental in the work what I do, is to get your mind cleaned up, so you have conscious creator mindset to set goals and accomplish them, only those which serve society. And that's what basically it. So you have the examination mind, you see something in 30 seconds, you know what to do with it. Is it yours? Not. What to tweak on it, if it's, how can it be yours or not? So that's what happens when your mind is clean. So other than that, all these other groups which are not promoting the meditation are basically against for your growth. I just wanted to add as a little addition, and saying goodbye shortly. And so I hope that this was meaningful, my little addition here. So
Thank you, Zsuzsanna.
thank you very much. Thank you.
It was very beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you.
David, today was not just the first day for Sports Lodge International online meetings, but a lot of public revelations about our own parts, right? And you did share a little bit of your own story, and Zsuzsanna shared something that was not public before. And I will share something about belonging and how I quit smoking. So I smoked cigarettes for 13 years. And I'm a decently young man. I'm 20 years old, right? So I started somewhere between 11 and 12. And imagine for so many years you smoking cigarettes and you just, having a time of a moment, right? Without truly realizing why you were doing that. And I was quitting smoking for, I don't know, for almost all 13 years. I was smoking and I was quitting. I was smoking and I was quitting. And then one day before quitting, it was 1 year before quitting, something about that, because it took 1 year for me to fully realize the reasons why I was smoking. And I even came so close to those events that influenced my smoking habit. That I could remember, I could smell, I could remember sounds, I could see the colors. It was so vivid. It took me a year to have this spherical experience of that. So the thing was that I was growing up with a single mother, and my mother was like is heavy smoker, and she would, she would like to belong by spending time with neighbors, our friends, have a coffee and a cigarette, and they would enjoy their time. And with her mother's love, she wanted to protect me, so she wouldn't, allow me to go there in that space where they're smoking, right? For me, that was like, I want to be close. I want to enjoy. They're laughing. It's good for them, and I'm not being part of it, right? So that created an anchor in me, an association that whenever you having a cigarette with somebody, that's a good time. You belong. You're part. Because whenever you meet somebody, you grab a cigarette. We can look even to media, right? It's always you meeting someone, the cigarette is there, right? So I ended up realizing that I was having this need to belong, so this internal void of being part of something, and I was fitting it with smoking. And when I realized it,
Yep.
it was
Yeah,
like,
and yeah, and it was exactly the same thing for me. When I go back to when I started 13, my thinking was when I bought my first packet of cigarettes, maybe the guys will like me. I remember that thought.
I started smoking with a guy who was kind of a bit of a bigger guy, an older guy in class, and I just wanted to hang around with him, and I was cool because I could buy cigarettes. He couldn't in that small town, and I had a way to buy it. So, and that created this importance. I felt important. I felt valuable. I felt needed. I felt that I belong somewhere. So how crazy is that, David? So little. It seems so little, but it can influence your life. It can take away your life if you do not reflect on it and if you don't make a decision.
Well, it's interesting when you say decision because you're making a decision every time you take a cigarette out of the package,
Many decisions.
right? So, and this was perhaps one of the great lessons that I learned when it came time for me to quit. So I will tell that story now. Is that the doctor was, as I mentioned, the doctor said, you imagine yourself over there on a stretcher and you're hooked up to the heart lung machine, you've just had a heart attack. He said more so, he said this, he said, here's what I've discovered about helping people to quit is, and this is when I became really aware of this function of the mind. When you want to have a cigarette, I want you to notice that there's a little guy in your head or on your shoulder, and he's having a conversation with you. And that guy is having a conversation with you every time you get up in the morning. He's making sure that you've got enough tobacco, if you've got enough fire, if you've got, in my case, I was rolling my own in those days. I made sure I had papers. So I recognized that. I saw that, I could see that in my own thinking that I was actually going through this checklist to make sure that I had enough smoke for the day and overnight, right? Every day, right? If I didn't have enough, I was going to the store, I was going to buy some more, I was going to, right? And it was all of that. And he said this was and he told me this, his secret was that for as long as you're having a conversation with that little guy in your head or the guy on your shoulder, as long as you're having that conversation, you will continue to smoke. The moment you choose to make it a monologue and decide you're not going to talk to him anymore, that's the time you'll quit. And so that's, and as I say, when I got to the swimming part, and I'm doing my swimming as rehab, and I couldn't get past 300 or 325 meters without being completely out of breath, that was the moment I decided I'm stopping this conversation. And I stopped the conversation on October 17th, 2000. I said, that's it. I'm not talking. And literally the guy for the next 3 days, he was knocking and saying, I said, I'm not talking to you anymore. I'm done. I'm done. And after 3 days, the voice got quieter, got less frequent, to the point it's disappeared. To the point now today where I can pick up a cigar or a pipe of tobacco, and I'll have a smoke because I enjoyed it. I don't like the flavor, the taste anymore. It's really awful. How did I do that all those years? But I could have something and I could put it away and forget about it. It doesn't run my life. It's not a voice in my head that's running my life. And it really awoke me to the story that I'm carrying as an internal dialogue and the role that the self-talk plays in how we conduct our lives, which of course is an important piece whenever it is you're coming to, as setting goals, when it is when you're trying to overcome things in your life. The whole role of self-talk is something that we actually are doing because it's linked very closely to our emotional life and to our thinking life, which are also very tightly woven together. And those two things, the thoughts and the emotions, are the drivers. In fact, it's the emotion that drives us into action, into our behaviors. So those are really important pieces to keep it, to think and to be able to reflect and become conscious of. And this is the consciousness piece. When you become conscious of the role that this self-talk and the repeated stories that we tell ourselves that keep us in a particular state of thinking or particular emotional state are stories where we need to be able to then make a new decision, change something, change the narrative, because that then becomes the choice of the decision of freedom to choose what you think, freedom to choose what you feel, so that you can then enter into that kind of community that Dr. Zsuzsanna was talking about, that space of, yeah, we are here. You can't be conscious of that if you're running this storyline all the time in your head. Okay. And we've got them. It doesn't mean that I've actually transformed that. I've got all kinds of stories that keep coming up, but I'm aware of them and I'm aware of how they run my life. And so that becomes then the next step, to be able to become aware of something that's actually bigger than you, so that you can then choose you can become aware of what your place is in it and how you can contribute to it.
For those who are watching this video, and if you're struggling to get a grasp on the methodology and the depth of the conversation, I will give you a recommendation to watch a movie. It's called Peaceful Warrior. It's about British gymnast. You will understand that, right? Because this part of realizing the difference between your observation, your ability to observe this noise, that's the winner. That's the winner's language. That's when you become accountable and you become present version of yourself. You start to become it. You start to make those choices, every single cigarette at the time. If you're still smoking, it's that choice is every single cigarette at the time. And realize, clarify, it doesn't matter. You are just someone walking down the road and making a decision to change your life habits, or you're someone standing on a podium or going towards the podium of Olympic athlete, or that doesn't matter what level athlete you are. It's so fundamental. It's not a woo-woo thing. It's not something that you should ignore. That's something to research. That's something to sleep on it. I use the saying, sleep on it. If that is so important for you, sleep on it. And yeah, it's beautiful. I'm grateful, David, that you gave this sense of bringing a simplistic and also a scientific element to this conversation. It's really, really beautiful. And David, I'm very, very much keen to see you sometime next time, sharing more deeper onto modalities and science of our development. It's important. And I believe the people who watch this video comment David, return. David, come back.
I want to just say one thing in closing, is that you've touched on the most important mental faculty that you can have and you can develop, and that is observation. Not just observation of your external world, but observation of your inner world, because we have the inner senses and the outer senses, and part of the training and the kind of everything that we've spoken about today is connected to that. Your ability to observe and to be able to build your observational capacity is the key to being able to then develop yourself in whatever level, in whatever capacity, because then you're able to make adjustments through that observation. Otherwise, you're just caught up in this noise that's going on upstairs, and you're not able to reflect on it. But observation provides that as the opportunity. And that's available to all of us in every moment.
That's the key to self-mastery. That's the key. That's the door. That's the key. That's the keyhole. That's the keychain. Yeah, hands down. Exactly.
Hands down.
And that's where we put down our microphones. But that's not a finish. That's just a beginning. And we are the people who sees that, who understands that, and who works for that. Check out David Hesketh. You can check his social medias. You can check his website, brainfocushealth.com. You can check Dr. Zsuzsanna Fajcsak on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. I suppose she also has TikTok. And you can check her website, drzsu.com, drju.com. So it's a beautiful team to have. So I'm very humbled and honored. David, thank you, my friend, for leading me in this journey, for helping me, for helping Sports Lodge. Thank you.
Pleasure. And I wish you and all those that are watching the very best, and good wishes and blessings. And look forward to seeing you the next time. And hopefully we'll have some people on a call and we can start to do some Q&A. That would be fun, because that's always because then we get to the meat of where people's interests and what they want to learn, what they want to understand.
Yeah. So this is something to open, and then we will have them. Speak to you soon, my friend. Everybody, see you soon. Join us.
Bye-bye.
Bye.